Today marked the fourth day of the indefinite strike action orchestrated by teachers in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. As some parents continue to question the silence of the government on the issue, the former president of the Cameroon Bar Association, Barrister Sama Francis, as well as some top traditional rulers in the southwest region of Cameroon are proposing solutions. We shall be hearing from them in this edition of the news. Also ahead, one on the standoff in Bamenda between security forces and the population, the governor of the northwest region of the country, Adolphe Lafrique, has confirmed that one person died, and Cameroon's diplomat, the president of the Cameroon Red Cross and former Secretary General of the United Nations, William Itekim-Bomoa, began his journey to the world beyond today. Those are headlines. We shall be right back. And that does it for this first segment of the news. Up next is Talking Points. Stay with us. Medical officials in Cameroon have not ceased to reiterate the far-reaching consequences of tobacco consumption. In Cameroon, where consumption rate is high, the biggest problem is how to stop minors from tobacco intake. Statistics show that a majority of those sales points are not far from academic institutions in Cameroon. It is a similar situation in cities like Yaoundé, here in the economic capital Douala, and also across the national territory. Joining us tonight is one of the key actors who are engaged in the fight against tobacco in Cameroon, tobacco consumption, especially amongst minors, Mr. Ayong Ifan Caleb. We thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
Thank you very much, Mimi.
It should be noted that you are the communication officer of the Cameroon Coalition to Counter Tobacco in Cameroon.
That's right.
So far, what is the situation or the rate of tobacco consumption amongst minors today in the country?
It's amazing, Mimi. Negatively amazing, of course, because in April 2016 we carried out a study of observing schools, and we chose some randomly selected schools in Yaoundé, 20 of them in all the 7 subdivisions of Yaoundé, and we observed these schools for activities of the tobacco industry. We found out that of these 20 schools observed, up to 173 points of sales were found around these schools, and we observed within 100 meters radius of these schools, and that gives an average of about 9 tobacco sales points per school. So that tells you that the tobacco industry actually is targeting these schools, and that is because they know that the youths, the students, the pupils are very agile. They can easily try something like a cigarette, and once they do that, with nicotine present in the cigarette, they are bound to.
So you have the impression that the rate at which students are consuming, or children,
students are
minors,
much more exposed
to is tobacco, because these sales points are closer to
the tobacco industry has realized that the children are daring, so they do everything possible to get their products very close to the reach of these students and pupils, and in that way they can be tempted to start off something, and once they start, it becomes difficult to quit.
This fight has been going on for 10 years now, because you actually celebrated your 10 years of existence few months ago. So far you are not backed by any legal framework. There's no legal framework that is backing your cause. How are you succeeding with your mission?
Well, maybe not a national legal framework, and that is what we're clamoring for, but we have an international convention which Cameroon has signed and ratified as a WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, which Cameroon ratified in 2006, 10 years ago, and that convention requires governments, signatories, to enact legislation that seriously regulates the consumption of tobacco in the country, and that is one of the major things we're trying to do now. Actually, one of the messages, the main messages we were giving out, one of the main messages we want to give out to our listeners today, Mimi, is that the government needs to work very hard. I told you about the study we carried out in April 2016. Yes, that study showed that actually the tobacco industry targets these schools, and we've done our best to to bring it to the studies to the government. We brought it to their attention, and so far they have given a listening ear. And in fact, if I'm here today, it's also to highlight the fact that the government of Cameroon, through the Ministry of Communication, and especially the minister who also happens to be the president of the National Advertising Council in Cameroon, so far they have been very receptive and collaborative.
But it seems it's obviously not enough, because you still have a long way to go.
Well, while we are thanking them for what they are doing, we are urging them to do a lot more, because the more we delay in these activities, the tobacco industry, which is very huge, which is very which has all the means, can maneuver and then.
So how will you be able to achieve this, and what's your long and short term objectives?
You talk about achievements. Let me briefly give you one achievement. There were billboards we had in the country in the month of September, and these billboards were sponsored by a major institution, a major economic institution in the country. I wouldn't want to cite names here, and it carried messages saying that the tobacco, that Cameroonians should not. Actually, the main message was tobacco, illicit trade or counterfeit or contraband tobacco, contraband cigarettes kill, or contraband cigarettes finance insecurity. And then somewhere at the bottom of these billboards, they found a way of saying, don't buy, or buy only cigarettes that are licensed for sale in Cameroon. And we found that to be a subtle way of doing publicity for cigarettes, because if you tell them to buy all the legal ones, you are encouraging people to buy. We found this and we brought it to the attention of the government, and it was very prompt. The reaction was prompt. 2 weeks later, we carried out press conferences, we did press releases, we wrote to the Minister of Communication. 2 weeks later, the minister wrote back to the coalition, congratulating it for the vigilance and telling us that effectively he had written to that structure that was sponsoring these billboards and asked that the billboard should be taken down. And the following week, we saw those billboards being taken down. An indication
that your activities or the response is quite promising,
yes,
on the part of the government. What about the target population, the minors?
The target population, that is why I'm here, Mimi. I'm here to tell the population to be vigilant. That's why we will continue to carry out media advocacy, talk to them through the media, telling them that the tobacco industry actually uses subtle ways, to carry out publicity. And if we are not vigilant enough, we'll let it slide. But that's a lot of work being done, by the tobacco industry to recruit new consumers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ayong Ifankale, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We hope to have you some other time again.
Thank you very much.
That was a member of the Cameroon Coalition to Counter Tobacco in Cameroon joining us tonight in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. That is that for this edition of the news. We thank you so much once again for joining. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.